And we're back. Whoa. It's been a while. Better warm up the old sauce box. Meghan Markle and Angela Merkel made marvellous mermaids. Meghan Markle and Angela Merkel made marvellous mermaids. Meghan Markle and Angela Merkel made marvellous mermaids. Showtime. I'm Steve Jones. This is On the Marbles. Hello and welcome to the Formula One podcast. Unfettered by the constraints of broadcast TV. This is an honest platform where opinion and salacious gossip are free to those who dare to have them spewed into their eardrums. For example, I don't know if you know this, but Daniil Kvyat runs an illegal cockfighting academy in Minsk. I don't know if you know what else. Before we go jogging, because he chafes like crazy, Zach Brown says it's talcum powder, but I know for a fact it's rhino horn. Daniel Ricciardo, nice guy, yeah? Don't believe the act. If you could have seen what I saw that man doing to a tramp in an alleyway in Rhyl just a few short weeks ago, it would have made you sick. He is an unhinged lunatic. Now, I can say those things without fear of retribution or legal action because I'm looking at my producer. She's wide-eyed. She's mouthing something at me. I can't understand her. Okay. Now she's frantically searching for a piece of paper. She's found some paper. She's found some. She's scrawling on the paper with urgency, it has to be said. She's handing me the paper, and I'm about to read it. My previous statements regarding Mr. Kvyat, Mr. Brown, and Mr. Ricciardo are categorically untrue. I apologize unreservedly for any offense caused. So maybe not as infected as I'd hoped. By the way, for any first-time listeners, this isn't the show. This is just some riffing up top. The show is I ask questions you sent in, mostly about F1, but not exclusively, to the assembled legends of racing before me. So don't worry, content is coming. Let me introduce to you the fast faces I see before me. I'll introduce them alphabetically because they are marquee names. There's no support act in this room, no guest stars, if I may. They are the champagne of people. They are that new car smell. They are the chocolate in the end of a cornetto. David Coulthard and Mark Webber join us. How the devil are you, chaps? Enjoy the break? All good? You happy?
I don't like the chocolate at the end of a cornetto. It
Shut
spoils
up.
it.
What are you talking about? That's the best bit.
Oh, not for me. You can have my end.
Mark, please highlight he's a weirdo. That is the best bit of a cornetto.
Superb, mate.
There you
Absolutely superb.
You're all David Coulthard.
Individuals.
Yeah.
What have you been up to? DC, what's been going on in the break?
Well, I've not been getting my fortnightly fix of Formula One, of course.
Which
but
sucks.
It does suck, but I have been at racetracks. I've been taking it back to old school karting because my son's been out every weekend going round and round the racetrack and starting his journey towards wanting to emulate Mark Webber.
He loves two-stroke, DC. He loves a bit of two-stroke. Steve, so F1 cars, mate, the fuel they burn here is pathetic. Go-karts burn really, really cool shit. And no, mate.
He said shit.
Yeah. And they smell beautiful.
Okay.
So,
Well, I have to ask then.
that's the lure of karting at a young age. Gets you in.
But has young DC inherited his father's skill behind the wheel? Got to ask that question.
Thankfully not. He's got all of his mother's great driving skills. So now he's looking a lot better than I was at that age and that stage.
Oh, wow.
But I share it with you because that is my happy place. Standing there watching. I am the driver, as in the chauffeur to get there. I am the sandwich maker and I am the helmet cleaner. And I don't actually have any input when it comes to him driving as such. He's got a driver coach, Dave Boyce, that looked after me when I was a kid, who he listens to. Because I found out very early in the journey, when he started karting a few years ago, they just don't want to listen to Dad. So there's no point going to that space. So I just sit back, relax and enjoy.
Regarding cleaning the helmet, mate, is he hitting the bugs quick enough?
There's a lot of flies on there.
That's good.
There is indeed.
That's good.
Yeah, he's picking up some speed.
Circle of life. Fantastic. What about yourself, Mark? What have you been up to?
Well, I've been unlocked down in Australia.
Yeah.
So that's been pretty bizarre because I did 2 weeks of hotel quarantine.
I was about to ask. You did the 2 weeks in a
I did
hotel?
the 2 weeks, mate. Which was, it does take a little bit of your soul, mate, actually. I mean, some people have said they definitely don't want to do it with their wife. Some want to do it on their own.
I wanted to do it with Mark, but he disinvited me.
Yeah, so I was trying to do it with DC because we wanted to DC wanted to get down under for the winter. But in terms of did it with Anne, it worked out okay. We had the pathetic stuff you end up laughing at. You just have to. And then I was out, mate. We were free, so no mask for 3 months.
That must be a wonderful day.
It was good. I left it they're really, really generous, mate, because it was Christmas. It was Boxing Day, so we were allowed out 4 minutes before our curfew.
Wow.
So we were there for
Bit of
two.
leeway there.
Oh, it was amazing. It was so kind of them. But anyway, mate, in Australia, and yeah, like you guys, just sort of, I mean, to be honest, mate, looking forward to this season. I watched the testing, and that was pretty good.
I've seen you. You showed me a video beforehand that he was at Bathurst, which is a legendary racetrack in Australia. Any of the listeners that follow motor racing will know that circuit. But you were getting your leg over. You were on the bike,
yeah,
motorbike.
got my leg over, mate.
You clocked some Ks up in your motor.
Yes, went to quite a few iconic locations in Australia, and mate, the summer weather's good, and I rode to some cool little towns, mate. I like going and meeting some characters, mate. You have a couple, what we call them schooners down under, not pines. You know that, Steve.
Yeah,
you spent loads of time in Sydney.
Because it's so hot, you need
young,
smaller receptacle, otherwise it'll get hot. Yeah,
that's right. You can't have a big pint glass because they just don't work. And
I'm fine with a pint glass.
Yeah,
I chug them pretty.
Yeah,
quick.
I know. Yeah, you do get through them pretty quick, but most English guys have small hands, so they don't heat the glass up as quick as Australian guys have big hands, small glasses. They cool. You got to keep them cool, So that's it.
Thank you, Dr. Webber. Myself, seems you haven't asked.
Mate. How have you been, Steve? What did you get up to?
I drank 1 million bottles of wine and watched 1 million hours of Netflix. The end. All right, let's do this. Here we go. F1 2021. Lights go off and away we drive. That's the saying, yes?
That was
pretty much, I think, kind of an interpretation of it.
All right, I'm rooting around in my digital sack for your first question, and it's from Fran Newgate. Hi, gang. Great to have you back. And can I just say really quickly, we may have been away for a year, but Fran very much remembers the spirit of the show. She asks, will Sebastian Vettel's dumpster fire of a final season at Ferrari continue at Aston Martin? Mark, why don't you go first?
Fran, look, I'm with you. I'm a bit nervous, I must say. I'm worried about, and it hasn't been light on commentary. I think there's quite a few of us within the industry sort of seeing how this last little, how many bullets has he got left in his magazine? I don't know. But I think he's going to enjoy the environment. There's no question about that. He will enjoy not being at Maranello and being in let's say, the English vibe and culture. He's always enjoyed that.
Yeah.
I know that for a fact. What that doesn't translate into, and I don't think it will cleanly, is automatic performance. I think he's going to enjoy himself more. I don't know how it's going to go on the stopwatch, and the stopwatch is what F1's all about, right? So if he's subpar, and let's be honest, I mean, he's not at the start of his career. And if you're mid-pack, I don't care what colour the car is, whether you've changed team, whether whatever, mid-pack is still mid-pack, and he's not a mid-pack guy. So I'm still a bit nervous about how this season will unfold for him, and the team is, they're not serial winners yet. They haven't got the intensity about them. They're on a journey. Yes, he's on that. He's going to understand that, but how's that going to go for his juices in terms of motivation and momentum? I'm really nervous.
David, anything to add?
I've got to say that I think Mark's nail, head, hammer, what's the expression? Hit the nail on the head?
Hit the nail on the head.
Thank you. Well, there you go. I just don't see how he will rediscover that mojo. I think that he's an asset for the team in terms of experience, safe pair of hands in terms of bringing the car home. But I think once you lose that little bit of speed, as in soccer, you lose a yard, then you've lost an advantage, getting to the ball and getting it in the back of the net. So I feel that, as a move, they've brought him in, but they lost sponsorship that Perez was able to bring from Mexico. There's no way that he's bringing any money from Germany. He'll be taking plenty of money from the team. Yeah. But I do wonder if it's also part of a sort of brand building, not only for Aston Martin, the German market is important, but also for Lance. Lance Stroll, the other driver, because if he can beat a 4-time world champion, that'll become justification for why he's a champion in weight. I'm not saying he is, I'm not saying he's not, but there's some doubt as to where he really sits in the pecking order.
But let's be honest, I mean, that would be disastrous for Seb if Stroll started beating him regularly.
Yeah, if he does to Seb what Charles did to Seb, then I just don't see how he can finish the season.
No.
Ooh. Okay, we'll be watching that with bated breath.
Might have to get your suit out, DC.
Our old friend Umachima has been in touch. Who do you fancy to come out on top of the rookies, which of course is Yuki Tsunoda, Nikita Mazepin, and Mick Schumacher? Who's going to dazzle, chaps?
Tsunoda is, I mean, he's looking pretty good so far. We're hearing good things about him. As DC knows, and as the industry knows, you can do, putting one lap together here and there is all well and good, but, can he do 2 hours around Monaco or Suzuka or whatever? So that's the high altitude mountaineering sort of experience that he's going to need to gather up.
It's important for Asia, important for Japan, and Honda, of course, with the relationship they've got there and what's their final year as official suppliers to Formula One. They'll obviously still continue. Their technology will be taken over by Red Bull technology, actually. But yeah, he did a solid job, and testing was close to Pierre. But the big test is not how you perform over 100 laps and a test day when you can pick your moment, new tyres, low fuel. It's in that fight, coming across the line with 10 seconds to go, and it's the last lap in qualifying. As I know, to my detriment during my career, that was an area that I just couldn't find that last little sparkle of speed. And that doesn't mean you don't have a role to play in Formula One, but the key ingredient for anyone that's really challenged for World Championships is they have qualifying speed. And that is just speed, and they're able to deliver that consistently.
And Schumacher will be exciting too. I know we've spoken about Tsunoda, but Mick, he's
Nice
massive
boy.
again for the sport.
Yeah. Nice lad.
You got to, yeah, exactly. You got to, in a way, nearly feel for him, Steve. I mean, the profile of the guy is massive, considering he hasn't even done a race yet.
Yeah.
So, he's got broad shoulders, and he's in a pretty low-profile team in a good way. So that'll be. Well, they're both together, aren't they? Him and Mazepin. They'll be learning together, mate. So hopefully they just don't hit the same walls at the same time.
Dexter French asks, are you happy to see the return of Fernando Alonso?
Mixed emotions on this one for me.
Really?
I have a massive amount of respect for Fernando. One of the best that ever raced in our sports. Come through with just grit and determination. It wasn't a silver platter by any means. And what he did against Michael, what he did, with Lewis, he's done some incredible stuff. And on Sundays, there wasn't many better. When he was at his peak, I think there wasn't many better on a Sunday afternoon in terms of that repeatability of lap time. All conditions pretty handy. Not so much in full wet conditions. He was never really that strong in my opinion, but mixed conditions and just a normal dry Grand Prix, amazing. Over one lap, not the fastest in the world, still handy, don't get me wrong, but not the quickest over one lap compared to some of the other guys, like a Lewis. Or I'm talking about the real special guys.
Yeah.
But look, there's a point where, I just love youth coming through. I love, where is the next Max Verstappen? Where is the next Charles Leclerc? Where are these? They are great for the sport. So, and Fernando was, is he what Fernando did for the sport when Fernando arrived at 20? I don't think it is. No, I don't. He's a big name, unquestionably. Huge for Spain, great for the sport. But I just like that our sport should continue to look for the future and finding the Alonso that we found 20 years ago.
Okay, thank you, Mark. DC, would you like to provide a contrary opinion?
Well, not surprisingly, I agree a lot with what Mark's saying there. But what I would say is if you're good enough, you're old enough, and if you're good enough, you're not too old. That's the bottom line. He's not there because Formula One's throwing him a charity line. He's there because he wants to be there. When he was in retirement, he did Le Mans, he did Indianapolis, he did Dakar Rally. He's been pretty active. And I understand the point that people can say, well, you've had your chance, now just go and sit on the sidelines and let the next talent come through. But there is young talent coming all the time. And just because it's young doesn't mean it's better. You know, there is sometimes an element of, you know, potential is an overused word in anything. You know, potential sells excitement. Potential gets people, you know, really, wow, just wait until this realizes its potential. Well, you've got a product there that delivers right now, so why change? So let's see how he delivers. It certainly puts a spotlight on his teammate. He's really got to step up and make sure that he delivers. His name escapes my mind right
Esteban
now.
Ocon. Esteban Ocon.
Lovely man as well. You can't miss him. He's huge. He's so tall. I was looking at my notes and he's not even there.
I could see you scurrying. I thought, I'm leaving him hang for just a little bit longer, then I'll tell him.
But this is a podcast, so no one can see us, despite the camera pointing right at me. But yeah, Fernando, it puts spotlight on Esteban, and Fernando, can he help what is now called the Alpine team? Of course, we know it's all Renault, but let's see if they can step up.
Well, Tim Cohen has come out swinging here. He's saying, what will be the cause of the inevitable Alpine-Alonso breakup? Tim, you delightful cynic.
Well, Tim, I think that you have to be Einstein to work out that it's going to be, if it does implode there, it'll be around performance. I mean, you know, it's all happy days if there's a bit of champagne flying around and Fernando's, you know, dominating or even beating his teammate consistently, and he's the one that, you know, the optics on it are that he's the one that's performing and bringing more to the team in terms of constructors and results, then that's all great. If it's the other way around, if Ocon has his measure and the team is mid-pack and, you know, if it's a genuine struggle, then there could be some friction, because again, Fernando is, you know, he will not accept being outperformed by Ocon fair and square, and if that does happen, that's going to be a challenge. So that will probably be the biggest thing, is the teammate, you know, competition. If he's not on top of that, there could be some fireworks. So yeah, let's hope for all of us that, you know, because we know he has a bit of a rant, doesn't he, on the radio, which we've all done. You know, I had a few when I was competing too. I'm not saying we're immune to that, but Fernando's had some legendary ones. We might have some more.
I mean, it's a French team, let's not forget, Alpine. I mean, they may be leaning towards Esteban Ocon. So if Alonso throws his toys out the pram, DC, if he's not beating him fair and square, you know, I can't see the team are going to have an issue with it because their boy is winning.
Well, yes, I understand that logic, but Fernando is very integrated to that team. He won more championships with them. You know, he's been part of that journey. He speaks French. I just think that it really is. And, you know, Renault have committed to Formula One for a long time, and it's been a long time since they've really been at the dizzy heights. You know, the last time, of course, in terms of a pure manufacturer, was in their partnership with Red Bull, which somehow both parties have to say they mismanaged that relationship. Both did, because they were publicly bickering, whilst they were working together and winning races. So, you know, was that just a clash between the French and the British personalities? You know, old history just coming forward, which is a bit small-minded, and let's see how they play out this year. But the rumour mill is that the car hasn't really taken a step forward for this year, so it could be a painful season.
I don't want to stir the pot, chaps, but are you boys going with Alpine or Alpine? I know the French say Alpine, but guess what? I ain't French. I don't know if you can tell by the accent. So what are you going with, Alpine or Alpine?
It's like Leclerc or Leclerc, isn't it? I mean,
Alpine. Alpine's BMW, isn't it? So
I'm going Alpine, yeah, Alpine.
Okay. I feel like you cut that conversation real short there, DC. You were about to have some fun with that.
Oh, okay. Well, do you want to pick up and keep going? And
No.
Alpine?
No, you've answered the question. It's Alpine. If you don't say Alpine, you're an idiot.
You don't know your cars.
Yeah.
Because Alpine was always the BMW, that was the AMG of before I think the M Sport came along.
Just for me, can you spell Alpine?
I think it's got an E. I think it's got an E on the end of it, hasn't it?
No, it has not.
Okay, that's good to know.
No, it has actually.
Has it?
I'm just messing with it.
Okay.
No, but Alpine and Alpine is spelled exactly the same.
Did you see their virtual launch? Amazing.
I did not.
Fantastic.
I did not.
Real
Maybe
quality.
I was too busy hosting Mercedes launch.
You were very good. You were very good on that.
Thank you very much. Okay, let's put that aside. Let's move on. Chiyoko Chen wants to know, Will this be Lewis Hamilton's final season in F1? That's a good question. I'll just flesh it out slightly. I think Chiyoko is speculating if Hamilton was to win an 8th title, becoming the sport's most decorated driver, will he head off into the sunset because simply there is nothing left for him to achieve in the sport? Gentlemen, DC?
I think it's possible. I think that signing a 1-year contract lacks commitment on both sides. You know, I get that you could say, well, let's leave things open because the new regulations coming in, fundamentally different cars in 22, but they're not going to learn any more about each other this year that they don't already know in terms of the relationship with Mercedes and Lewis. He's been with Mercedes power since he started in Formula One. He had backing from Mercedes and McLaren in karting. So I don't see and buy into the fact that he might pop up at Ferrari or something like that. He's not going to do a change of horse like Michael did, going from Ferrari to Mercedes. So I think it just shows doubt in their minds, which cannot be a good thing. You know, life experience is great, of course, because it makes you more able to make decisions. But with experience comes baggage. Now, some of that may be high-end Louis Vuitton type baggage, but you still have to carry it. And that mental baggage, I wonder if he's just starting to not like certain elements of not the driving, but the politics of Formula One.
Mark?
Yeah, I mean, it's interesting when you start your career, there's the older dogs in the field will say, well, if you can just keep your motivation, you know, it should be all right, or rah. And it's like, well, how do you ever lose your motivation? It's impossible. But you do. And even someone like Lewis Hamilton, who's just, what the guy has achieved is just, it is so outstanding. We all, you know, are in awe of what he's achieved, which is special. He's definitely on the home straight. There's no question about that. Now, you'd be a brave man to say he's going to race for 3 more years. 2, maybe. 1, like DC says, yes, he's going to do that. And then there's a high chance. It makes a lot of sense for lots of different ways. There's new rules in 22. Having said that, he's Mr. Versatile. That's why he's won so many championships and races, because he's immune to changes regulation-wise, because he can just plug and play. That's why he's so skillful. There's so many strings in his bow. So that is interesting. I think, you know, if he was to ask either both of us legends here, you know, with no world championships.
That's him and his split personality, by the way, because I'm not included in the legends.
So us has-beens.
Legends.
Go as long, mate. Even Lewis at 8.5 out of 10 is still going to be dangerous.
Yeah.
So he's driving brilliantly. Go a bit longer. You don't have a great deal to lose, in my opinion, when you're that amazing and you just feel like you I still think he's got more in him, and you retired a long time, you know. So but he's been here a long time as well. You forget how early he started. You know, it's whether you're flying private, however you're getting around. You still have to, you know, pack the bags and get yourself here and get yourself. So anyway, could be it.
I asked him at the launch, could he see himself doing a Kimi, you know, being in the car post 40, and he answered no, with the kind of speed a bullet from a gun would be proud of.
Yeah.
So no to that. But then I was thinking, wait a minute, this guy's only 36.
That's
so
right.
he could still do a couple more years and be 2 years off 40. So I personally, I think he'll continue, and I have a mountain of respect for Lewis, but I think this is his life, Formula One, and I'm not sure that designing clothes or getting involved in music or whatever he wants to do would satisfy that primal urge inside him, which is
Monaco
drive a car
exactly,
fast.
mate.
I don't know.
Yeah, I totally agree with that. And also, he's used to, through his efforts, being able to influence success. No matter how good he is at producing music or how good he is at designing clothes, it is the paying customer that will decide whether that is financially successful or not. So that's a huge, you know, that's a huge disconnect. If doing something for an end goal result is part of what we all do in life, isn't it? If a sense of achievement, he might actually feel a massive sense of underachievement, even though he's producing great stuff. If the audience is not there for it, because let's remind ourselves, there's a lot of music out there, a lot of brilliant music, historic music, and I'm sure the music in the future will be great, and clothing likewise. You know, trends come and go. Motor racing is what he does better than most people on this planet. And I agree with Mark that you go as long as you can, but there will definitely be a moment where he wakes up and goes, I don't feel it anymore. And once the love's gone, it's time to move on.
Speaking of length, Zara Rudd wants to know, what are the chances of Bottas holding onto his seat beyond 2021?
Well, I think he's got a good chance of doing that if he performs at his best. You know, when he's at his best, he's right there in qualifying with Lewis. And although I don't think he's as natural a racer as Lewis, and you would still put your house on if the two of them were, you know, on the same lap time in qualifying, in the race you would still put your money on Lewis. But he just needs to be that perfect number one minus to maintain his seat there. Why change for the sake of change unless commercially it makes sense financially to put George in the car in a year's time, or to take someone else for that matter. You know, Max may be available if the wheels come off the Red Bull wagon.
All right, Jerry Bremner ponders, now that fellow Channel 4 and On the Marble Stefano Domenicali is running F1, does that mean he is your inside man at Liberty Media? Yeah, Jerry, think Matt Damon in The Departed. He's our man. DC, care to answer that?
Stefano is unquestionably a friend to us all, a lovely man, hugely experienced in motor racing. You know, he ran Mugello racetrack before he joined Ferrari, came up through the ranks there. He's run Lamborghini most recently, which shows that he's got the sort of bigger picture corporate thinking capabilities, as well as having a role with FIA and the Single Seater Commission. So box ticking exercise, and he's not intimidating like Bernie used to be. He's approachable and capable of delivering. So he will not tell us any secrets, of course not, because if he does that to us, he's doing it to Ferrari, he's doing it to all the other people, and then the paddock knows. But he'll, I don't think, give us mislead us, and we will, of course, like we always do, use our contacts and experience within the paddock to bring our listeners as much as we possibly can.
But he is let's say, mate. I mean, how many people have been on the Marbler?
I mean, very few.
That's right.
Exclusive club.
Very exclusive.
So he's.
I was nervous whether I was going to get invited back. That's how exclusive this club is.
He's got the secret tattoo. He's got that, which us three have got. So that's special. Really, really special.
It's very it's peculiar for me as I'm just a presenter involved in Formula One that Chase Carey I'd said hello to occasionally, but I'm going to get to stop and chat with the man who runs the entire thing. It's kind of exciting.
Yeah.
I didn't think I'd ever know the guy who runs the whole thing.
Yeah, you've probably already, to friends, name dropped him with excitement ahead of the season, because I'm sure your friends say, "Oh, Steve, you must be travelling soon," and you go, "Yeah, I'm getting ready off to Bahrain, another season." Yeah, looking forward to catching up with my friend Stefano Domenicali. Did I tell you he runs Formula One?
Have you been eavesdropping, DC? Congrats to him. He deserves. He's a wonderful man. Ben Johnston wants to know how you chaps think Sergio Perez will get on at Red Bull. Oh, I'm all ears. How's he going to do?
I think he's going to do well. I think that he's in a bit of a win-win situation, to be honest. He's clearly there to do the best support role he can for Max. I think he'll do better than the previous two guys that tried to be Max's teammates, which is obviously Pierre and Albon. Tremendously experienced, very, very. He's a magician on the tyres. So there'll be certain venues when he fires, he's very, very handy, and he knows how to bring a car home and jag out good podiums, and he's done that in subpar machinery. So I think that when this Red Bull fires, if this car's half sensible, which we believe it looks pretty handy, there's a great chance that he will have a solid season. And he's got to be there and put pressure on Merc around pit stops, for example, because if Max is on his own, there's only one dog in the fight. It's hard around strategy and using your, the weapons that you have to put heat on Mercedes as Red Bull would like to do. Now, that's what Perez has to be there for, around those first stops or second stops, how they can put Merc under some pressure and use Verstappen in different ways. Now, when Max is on his own, it's not nice. So Yeah, I think that I'm excited, actually, to see how he will go. Again, he's on the home straight of his career, but brilliantly timed from Red Bull to get someone that is just going to tick those boxes and get some big points for the team and go for the Constructors' World Championship. They need someone to do that.
He's going to be a fantastic supporting act, without a doubt. But I'm reading between the lines here, Mark. It sounds like you're saying there's no way he's going to beat Max.
No.
But he's going to be very supportive as a number 2.
Well, and also don't forget the Constructors is, when you've got someone like him, if he has a good little marriage with this car from a technical front and if it's as reliable as we hope it is and all the rest of it, he can score some pretty handy points. And when Valtteri's having his wobbles or bits and bobs here and there, I tried to fight for world championships, but I've been involved in a lot of constructors wins, and it's about you're literally, if you're finishing 5 seconds, 3 seconds, 10 seconds, or whatever behind the winner in the same car, that for the team is huge, and that's what Perez needs to be doing. Is it's going to be hard for him to get the measure of Verstappen, but yeah, I hope he can. I really believe he can score big this year, and that's what Red Bull are after.
What do you think, DC? 23 races, no chance that Sergio might pip Max at any of them?
I don't think there's enough to suggest that the time he's been in Formula One that he's got that last little bit of explosive speed that I think Max has. But what he absolutely has proven is that he is exceptional at going the distance on the tyres, and he's a very safe pair of hands. So in that respect, I really admire that Red Bull took what was probably not a very popular decision for those who support youth, and certainly wouldn't have been comfortable for Alex Albon, but to take the decision to go outside of their programme.
I think all the fans were behind that decision to
Yeah,
get Checo,
yeah. I think that we no one would want to see him lose his position in Formula One to a fading star in Sebastian Vettel. There's no question there was no flashes of brilliance from Sebastian last year, but somehow Lawrence Stroll and his team have seen something in Seb that they believe is better for that team than Sergio. He's certainly been there, done that, but they in terms of winning the races and the championships, but that's all historical information, and this is a fast-moving sport. But I think great that Checo's got the opportunity. It was painful at times to watch Alex try to come to terms with Formula One life, spotlight of pressure, expectation. Even if Checo is doing the same relative lap times, he'll handle it in a much better way because he's got the benefit of age, experience. And he'll just accept that Max is something special. If that's the case, if he matches him, it's a validation of him as a Formula One driver that, I was pretty quick.
So I suppose that's half the battle, if his experience and age will stop Max from breaking his brain.
Yes, I think
that's what
that
he
is
did to the young boys, Gasly and Albon, isn't
Yeah, exactly. Because Max just doesn't care. He's not here to make friends. He is here to try and win races and win championships. There is nothing else that he's here for.
He's a monster. We love it. Sticking with Red Bull. Chimi DeChanga wants to know, could this be the year where Red Bull finally win one of the championships, or maybe even both? I mean, are we really going to get sucked into that hope vacuum once again that they can, pip Mercedes to it?
I think it's unlikely to get both, but I think that I'm just praying that Max can go deep with Lewis in the Drivers' Championship. That's what we've just got to hope for. At best, going to the last. If you can take it to the last 2 or 3, then that would be awesome.
That'd be amazing.
Long season and reliability. Still, we know the Merc is, the way that engine operates. It's still the benchmark when it comes. Even if there was apples for apples on power. But we still see some vulnerabilities every now and again. I know they had a good year last year, but just using the Honda over the course of such a long stretch-out season and stretching the mileage across the power units is not something to be trivialised. So I think that the Merc still, 1 or 2 DNFs, maybe Lewis, he can handle some of those. But Max needs a perfect season to beat Lewis.
DC?
Yeah, there's no question in the absence of a major regulation change. There have been some changes to the cars, tidied up a little bit around the floors, taken away some downforce, and some people will, with those adapted rules, find a little window of opportunity, and it does look like the Red Bull is in a, let's say, a slightly more comfortable operating window, and it did look like Mercedes, especially with tailwind, were more sensitive Whether that's borne out or not in reality, we have to see. They've had a fairly major update that they used in a shakedown that they didn't have here at the test. So it could be their level of confidence that they've tested the car for reliability, and they'll bring their, this is the big dog upgrade that will just put them back on the top. But in the absence of any other information, then they have to be the benchmarks. Red Bull are the biggest challengers, but it would be great to come away from this race with 3 different manufacturers on the podium.
That would be extraordinary. Sam Todd wants to know, what do you guys do before and after you go on air? I'll go first. Just for luck, because I'm a vegetarian, I slaughter a goat before and after we film. Just for luck. What about you guys?
Well, we appreciate that because I love goat, and it just gives me enough time to bring it up to my perfect medium rare temperature.
Well, iron our shirts. David's meticulous with his ironing capabilities, as you asked, Davros.
But can I weigh in on that?
Yeah.
I've said it to him for the last 6 years.
Yeah.
He irons his shirts. Basically, he's supposed to turn a shirt inside out. So if there is any burn, you can save the shirt. You don't do that, DC. And I've told you numerous times he ignores me.
And you can go over the buttons too, can't you?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
But he doesn't do that.
He goes inside the buttons.
I don't burn.
Yeah.
I don't burn.
You don't burn.
I've got it. I have my technique.
But you're making the material
Perfection.
shiny, DC. Shiny.
Yeah, but that's what you need to be on television in
All
high definition.
shiny.
Yeah,
Oh,
shiny.
so you say,
Makes you
mate, he's
pop
just
on the
putting
telly.
he's putting a slight reflection on the fabric with the temperature of the iron.
Yes, you're damaging the fabric
of
whether
course,
you burn it or not.
Yeah, yeah.
You're putting too much of a shine
DC's
on.
I only
damaged
wear them
plenty of
once.
fabric.
Oh, God, did you hear that?
What's that?
I only wear it once.
Oh yeah. Yep.
You
Well,
son of a...
he's a fabric destroyer. But yeah, so that happens. Shirts. I mean, Steve does a bit of hairspray.
Yep.
I mean, sort of just generalising here with all of us. But mate, not much, champ. I don't know what you're naming, but we just get ready. Where's that, mate? We're just pros, son. We're just pros.
Yeah.
We just do a bit of homework. We want to bring the great show that is on Channel 4 closer to the audience with our brilliant punditry and try and. We're not going to get bogged down in tyre pressure and all this. So our prep is genuine, mate. Our prep is authentic and genuine, and we want to keep it real.
So it's educational, this podcast. I didn't know we were on Channel 4. Brilliant.
Yeah.
This next one I'm very interested in the answer to. Ruby Gypsum inquires, is it not Mr. Coulthard's 50th soon? What has he learnt in his half a century that he might pass on to us mortals?
I am now trying to pass on some motivational tips to my son at the racetrack by telling him to see mistakes as opportunities, because you will, when you push in anything you do in life, if you're really pushing yourself, there will be occasional errors because of a lack of time to really reflect on all the ramifications. But that is the nature of motor racing. But if you see a disappointment and then live that disappointment, the scenery is still moving, but you're in a negative headspace. So I'm trying to get him, and I wish I had known this earlier in my life, to not dwell on, it's so disappointing, why did this happen to me? Forget all that chat. Think it, park it, right, this happened to me, where am I now going? How can I use where I now am as a springboard to greater success? And it's just turning your negative mind into a positive mind, and it really works. Because if you tell yourself, I don't like this, I don't like this, I don't want to go, you're not going to really have a good time, are you, if you're in a very negative space? But if you go, brilliant, today's washing up day or today's cleaning day, none of us like to clean, but just brilliant, it's an opportunity to do something and make it, in your own mind, fun. You may be slightly fooling yourself, but if you're fooling yourself into positivity, what part of that is not good?
I love that. There endeth the lesson.
Isn't he? Just
He's
magnificent.
just a remarkable man.
Can you imagine that question when he's 100? How good it would be.
No, by that point, I'll definitely dwelling on all my mistakes. Why?
Twice as good.
Actually, I'll have that on my gravestone. Just why? I won't have anything else. I'll just say,
Just
why
why?
did he ask why?
Yeah, why?
Actually, what I am having on my gravestone, if I can indulge for a moment, is
Please.
I am having written upside down, he left no stone unturned in his quest for fun. So people have to bend over and read it upside down. And
Genuinely?
Go, yeah, 100%. I've got it written into my will. No stone unturned in his quest for fun.
Upside
and
down.
people will have to
Yeah,
then go,
that's
right in the
fantastic.
last he did that.
That is fantastic. Moving on.
Who we got, mate? Who we got?
Great question here from Rob Bortkowitz. Chaps, which driver would you choose for a teammate from the current grid and why? That's a great question.
I go with Max Verstappen.
Why?
Because I think he is the person that's there ready to take over from Lewis in terms of being the benchmark. Lewis is benchmark.
Team boss, mate, or your
teammate?
Teammate.
Yeah,
Yeah.
teammate. Yeah.
So you want to be whipped by Max Verstappen every couple of weeks?
I would rather know where I stand in the overall hierarchy of performance than win a world championship or a race with a poor teammate. I have said this before. You can read it in my book. I'd rather have raced at the same time as Michael Schumacher and somehow, because of fate and everything else, finish second to him in the world championship than win that title because he wasn't in the championship that year. And I know, and everyone else knows, I only won the championship because he pulled a sickie. Go up against the very best and find out where you are. And if you beat them, you can go, I've achieved that goal. And if you don't, you go, well, look, I wasn't the best, but this is where I ranked. I don't fear finding out that I'm not the best at something. I'm not the best at anything. But I had a hell of a lot of fun trying to find out how good I was relative to the best.
I read your book. It is what it is. It's a fantastic
Did
read.
it clear that insomnia?
Pardon?
Did it clear your insomnia?
Well, I do read just before I go to sleep, but it kept me awake. It was so interesting. But I was just stunned with a lot of the insecurities that you had throughout your early career. Like you thought the team was supporting like Mika, and that's a thing.
That was a reality.
Well, I just found that very surprising. I was like, wow, because you're so self-assured, but obviously you're a younger man there. But that would be an issue if Max Verstappen were your teammate. Then surely you'd be thinking, well, the team would completely supporting him. What about me?
No, because if all I ever asked from McLaren was an equal opportunity, and if that meant that I was slower than Mika, I had to deal with that. But if I felt that he was getting, and I explained it to Ron Dennis, I said it's like you bring your two kids in and you'd say, right, you're going to both run the company for a month individually and see who does a better job, but you bring one of them in on the Sunday and give them a briefing. You're giving them a psychological advantage. You're not physically running the company for them. He eventually admitted that because he stood over Mika's bed in hospital
for the crash.
when he was on a life support machine, uncertain whether he was losing one of his drivers or whether he'd ever make a comeback, that developed a deep-rooted lifelong bond that they will always have. And once he confessed to all of that after a bit of badgering from me over the course of a couple of seasons, my insecurities disappeared. I went, thankfully, I'm not. Yeah, I now realise I'm not mad. Seeing the shadows move, it's there, it's real. But here's an example. The very first race I did for McLaren was Melbourne '96. I'm sitting like this across the table from Mika. He had his two engineers, I had my two engineers. Ron walks into the room. I stand up, ready to shake his hand. He ignores me, pulls a chair up behind Mika and his engineer and goes, "What are we doing?" And they go on and explain their program. He then gestures over and goes, "What are they doing?" So I haven't even done a Grand Prix, and I realised I was they. But in fairness to Ron, and I had this conversation with him obviously during, I stayed with the team 9 years because we were in the end honest with each other.
He did the forward in the book I read.
He did. And I asked him for that very reason to do the forward, because there's no more sincere expression of what he thought of me as an individual than knowing that I, at various times, had to tell him I didn't think he was being honest, and I didn't think he was being open. And he'd be, no. And then eventually he was like, well, okay, and here's why. But once you get to that level of relationship and honesty, the anger goes, the frustration goes. Because, and Frank Williams, and Mark's worked with Frank as well, once told me something on a certain day, and the next day something else happened. I can't remember the exact example, but I went to him and said, but Frank, you told me yesterday, looked me in the eye, and said, this is what's happening. And he went, yep, I lied to you, because I employ 500 people here, and they're more important than just you as a driver. And if I told you yesterday, it would have had an outcome on those 500 people. And at that point, when someone's honest to you about their lie, it's very difficult to be angry.
Honest about a lie. I think that's a bit of a paradox, isn't it?
It is. But you know,
mind.
I love Mark's expression about Formula One not being a finishing school. This isn't a finishing school, as he says very well, and he can say it in a much better Aussie accent. This is the ultimate journey of life. It's not just about speed. It's about political learnings. The best thing that's happened in my 50 years, as you mentioned, coming up to 50, is this university of motor racing life, because we've had the opportunity to push our mental and physical extremes, discover things about us, learn about life, understand how big companies work, go to other countries to meet different cultures. What a brilliant, brilliant journey.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. And by the way, I'm going to have to go back because I don't want to get a mean text or tweet from Rob Bolkowitz. Mark, which driver would you choose for a teammate from the current grid and why?
Well, having listened to David there, and it was brilliant listening to DC.
Fascinating.
Really, really great. Really good stuff.
I did see you fall asleep halfway through
no,
that.
No, bullshit, mate. It was good. It was really good. I think that Lewis, because it's the same thing. It's like I was lucky to race against him a lot. Most of the time he, of course, towed me. I raced a lot against Fernando. I raced a lot against Sebastian in a previous life, in his previous life as well, by the looks of it. Kimi Räikkönen, Jenson Button, Kubica, right? So it was Michael was still floating around at that point. So, but Lewis, I'd be fascinated to be in the boxing ring with him and see how hard the punches come. And how, what combinations...
Brilliant, isn't it? What a brilliant expression.
What combinations they are.
I'm going to listen to On the Marbles just so I can then memorise his
But
one-liners.
it's only then you see in exactly the raw, hard light of day, the telemetry and the machinery you've got at your disposal to say, well, yeah, this guy is a freaking handful. So that would be awesome to have some exposure at him. As I say, in the boxing ring would be awesome.
Sadomasochists, the lot of you, bonkers. Okay, finally. And this was by far the most popular request, but I'll pluck our good friends at Tandy Court out of the crowd. They muse, it would be very nice to hear what DC and Mark's favourite Murray Walker moment was.
It was actually nothing to do with being at the racetrack. It was when he came to Scotland and hosted This Is Your Life for my father in a little village close to the village I grew up, and wouldn't take any money for his time. And we were obviously insistent on, and he said, well, then do something for the Grand Prix Mechanics Trust, which is there to help you people associated in motor racing. It goes beyond mechanics, but anyone in motor racing who falls in hard times, which we of course did. But what a giving man, what a kind man, what a brilliant man.
Yeah, lots of good stories with Murray. It was actually through Channel 4 we did the nice feature with him only a couple of years ago at Silverstone, which was extraordinary to listen to him talk about. I think he was in India, I want to say like in the 1950s. He went to India and he was selling some pharmaceuticals, like going through Mumbai and Delhi. And I mean, absolutely extraordinary. You think, like, 70 years ago, Murray, you're like cruising around India, drove a tank, in different situations. A big two-wheel freak as well. Loved his motorbikes, which I do as well. Sort of Isle of Man commentary. I think he did some. He's just an incredible guy, a wealth of knowledge. But one of my funniest memories actually of Murray was we were once leaving with a private aircraft out of a big. A reasonable sized private aircraft. I think it was called a Back 111 actually. It was an old Australian aircraft that Paul Stoddart had bought a few of those over, and I was driving from Minardi at the time, and Murray used to jump on those flights back to Coventry. And Stoddy said, "Look, mate, we'll get the old landing card. Sorry, the safety card. And when we take off, you can sit in the aisle. And when we put the nose up, when we're lifting out, when we're in the climb, you can fly down the aisle you're like a slippery dip." And Murray said, "Yeah, no worries, I'll do that." Yeah. So on takeoff, Murray sitting, looking back at everyone else. And when the aircraft rotated off the end of the runway, Murray went back down the other way. And
oh my God, that's amazing!
What a legend! To do that, and you could easily poleaxe yourself on the end of on the end of a chair or something. But and all of this with no lubrication. In terms of he just was sober as a judge and lined himself up, and what a sport, what a sharp mind, a conscientious, a extremely humble guy, and he was the glue that pulled all of, I think, English speaking, the way that he commentated about the gladiatorial angle, the heroes, the drama, the weather, the screw ups he did. He was just infectious. When I was a young kid in Australia, 2 a.m. 9 years of age, 10 years of age, listening to him. Never forget in my life, mate.
He could make non-fans interested in Formula One when his voice, you wanted to listen to whatever it was he was saying, and whatever he was saying, you felt, you believed and trusted.
Well, this episode on the Marbles is dedicated to the late great legend that is Murray Walker. I think we all know how overused the word legend is, so it feels great to use it in its proper context. Listen, wherever you are, Mr. Murray Walker, you legend, thank you, thank you, thank you. That's us. It's very good to be back in your ears once again. If you like what you've heard, then do those things that people who like podcasts do. Until next time, may the downforce be with you, and may all your flags be checkered. Goodbye.
Sinister ending.